Welcome to the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. This is episode 17, Moonrakers. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
This is Mark.
In this episode, we're going to talk about the games that we've been playing lately, and then we're going to do a feature review on Moonrakers.
Mark's back.
Mark's back!
Hey, Mark! Mark's back.
Hey.
Welcome back, Mark.
It's good to be back.
Good to have you.
Always a pleasure.
We're excited to get your theme takes on our feature review today, and you can be the theme boss of everything else we're talking about today.
I'm excited to weigh in.
Yeah, should be good. It'll be a great discussion, as always.
It will. And it's exciting because Moonrakers is about to come out with a new Kickstarter for their expansions.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they add. I mean, the spoiler alert, the game's fun, and I think it has some room for expansions and to be even more fun than it already is.
It definitely has room for growth, so it'll be interesting. When is that Kickstarter actually launching? Do you know?
I think it starts July 19th, so it should be the day after this episode launches. Should we jump into what we've been playing lately?
Yeah, let's do it.
For sure.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll go first.
Okay.
I'm going to break the mold. Usually it's Kevin or Tyson. So a game that I've been playing lately, or a game that I played with my family, is called Gift of Tulips. This is published by Weird Giraffe Games. I think it was originally a Kickstarter. It's a beautiful little card game that takes place in Amsterdam during the Tulip Festival. Whoever scores the most points over the course of the game wins, and you score points by gifting tulips to other players. You also gain points by building your bouquet both during the game, and then there's some end game scoring based on the market of tulips. There's 4 different tulip types. There's a stack of cards, really beautiful components, some nice wooden point trackers and tulip ranking trackers. So basically, there are 4 different types of tulips, and in the market, they are ranked from best to worst based on the total value of the cards that have been played in that tulip type. So over the course of the game, you'll be adjusting and manipulating the rankings of the tulips. So on your turn, you draw a card and you have 3 actions available to you. You can gift a tulip to someone. And if you do that, you'll get the face value in points. Plus, if it's a higher ranked tulip, then you'll get bonus victory points as well. Or the second option is you can add it to your own bouquet of tulips. And if you do that with a lower ranked tulip type, then you'll get some victory points. The third option is adding a tulip to the market. And there's actually 2 markets you can add it to. You can add it to the secret market, which is placed face down. And then at the end of the game, that pile of secret cards will be shuffled, and 5 cards will be drawn from the secret market. One by one, they'll be flipped over, and they may change the rankings of the tulips right before the end scoring happens, which awards bonus points to the people that have the majorities on the higher ranked tulips. So that's the secret market. You're hiding away cards there to manipulate the rankings at the end of the game. You can also add them to the open market, which there's 2 tulips that start out in first and second at the beginning of the game that are selected randomly. And then over the course of the game, you'll add the other 2 types. And then as you add tulip to its pile, it may become more valuable and more desired, and it'll go up in rankings, and the tulip that's higher up may slide down to a lower spot. So basically, you're getting a lot of points from gifting tulips to other people. Like I said, you draw a card, do one of those actions on your turn, then you'll draw a second card, and you have to do a different one of those actions. So you can't just gift tulips to everybody the whole game. So it's really fun, really quick, 15, 20-minute card game. Logan was gifting tulips like crazy through the course of the game, but he was also adding to the secret market, trying to manipulate how the rankings would flush out at the end. That didn't pan out for him, but he had gifted enough tulips that he still won by 1 point. When I look at the art and the cards, it takes me right back to Amsterdam or to the Kokenhof Gardens in the Netherlands.
15 miljoen mensen op dat hele
just a great game. I think younger gaming families would pick this up pretty quick and enjoy it. And I would play this as a like palate cleanser after a 2.5, 3 hour game of Terraforming Mars before everybody goes home from game night. Hey, we've got 15, 20 minutes. Let's bust out Gift of Tulips and get this played. The quality, the production quality, like I said, it was a Kickstarter. I bought this at Origins, and I think Kevin picked up a copy as well. I was looking for it ahead of time. Going to Origins, I saw that it was on the list, and I'm a sucker for games about or from the Netherlands and Belgium. So I was really excited to get this one. I'm excited to have it in my collection, and it'll be a fun one to play on game night.
So you picked this one up, like you said, at Origins, and probably right about that time, I got a text from my buddy in Minnesota, Ken, who sent me a picture of this game, and I was like, wow, that's really pretty. But on top of that, you just said that a great palate cleanser, right? And that's exactly what he started texting me. He was like, this is an awesome game. Like, it's a great filler game, good between games kind of experience. And it's kind of his go-to filler game at this point because of everything it's doing. And it's so quick and it's punchy and it gives you all that kind of vibe. And it's beautiful production. And so he sent me that text, and then you come home with it. And I was like, oh, Gift of Tulips. That sounds like I really want to play it. So I still haven't had a chance to play this one yet, and I'd love to get this one played.
Yeah, I completely agree with Ken. He nailed it. So,
yeah, obviously I picked it up at Origins as well. I had a quick demo. They showed me how it played, and it looks like a great filler game, like you guys said. I'm heading out on vacation next week. It's in the bag to get played.
Nice.
This seems like a game that's right up my family's alley, and I think my daughter, my wife, brother-in-law are gonna love it. So excited to get it played. And like you mentioned, Tyler, it looks beautiful and the production's amazing. So
it is.
Looks like a good one for sure.
Yeah, it's blossomed right into my collection.
I've
played
a few of these weird giraffe games. I backed Fire in the Library and own that one. And they always do a really good job. They have these like small box, but like fun, like fillery, thinky kind of experiences. So I have high hopes for this one based off of your recommendation, Ken's recommendations, and Weird Giraffe's track history.
Yeah, I haven't played any of the other games, but I know Kevin picked up a few of them at Origin, so I'm excited to get some of those other ones played too.
Yeah, those will be played next week as well. So more to come on some future Weird Giraffe games.
Awesome.
For sure. So I've been playing on BGA. There is a new implementation of Point Salad. So we've talked about Point Salad in previous episodes, but we'll go into it a little bit more here. So the way Point Salad plays, it's a set collection drafting game where you're trying to. Basically, the theme is you're building a salad, right? So there's all these ingredients for a salad. There's lettuce, there's tomatoes, there's onions. Who puts onions in a salad? I don't know. There's peppers. There's just all these different. Tyler, you put onions in salads?
I mean, I don't make salads, but Shelley does.
I totally do.
Yeah.
Oh, you put onions in
I
salad?
am team onion on salads.
Yeah.
Wait a
Absolutely.
minute. I am obviously
You're
in
an
the
outlier.
minority here.
You think you're some sort of...
Especially
No.
if they're cooked a little too.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I've never done
Is
it
it cooked
cooked.
onions a thing?
Raw
in the
red
salad?
I go
onion.
raw. I can go red or white.
Now you're just that's just crazy talk right there. Anyway, so that's the theme. The way it works is you have a stack of cards, and the cards have a ingredient on one side, and then on the other side there's a scoring condition that will be scored at the end of the game if you meet those conditions. So you split up the deck into 3 piles, and then you flip over under each deck 2 cards. So you have 6 ingredient cards available. So when it's your turn, you have a choice. Either you take 2 ingredients and put them in front of you, or you take a scoring card off the top of one of the 3 stacks. Those are the 2 options. There's also one other thing that you can do is if you have a scoring card in front of you, you can flip it over to the vegetable side if you would like, and you can do that once per turn. So you do that on your turn, and it goes around the table until all of the cards are gone. So when you draft a vegetable card, you're going to replace it from its respective pile, right? So you go around the table, and when all the cards are gone, then you score. So the way you score is the scoring cards will have conditions like if you have 2 peppers, for example, you get 5 victory points. If you have a tomato, you get 4 victory points. But if you have an onion, you get -2 victory points. So you're trying to match the cards you have in front of you and that you're drafting and the victory point cards that you get. And you're also looking around the table to see what everybody else is collecting. Because if Mark is collecting peppers and he has a bunch of cards that scoring cards to get him points for peppers, I don't want to give him peppers, so I'm going to draft those myself. So there's a little bit of hate drafting in this game as well, but you're also trying to obviously do what's good for you and is going to help you win. So it's a quick rundown of Point Salad. It's a game that I've been playing for a while now. It's a hit with my family, and the BGA implementation is great. It's fun to try and get that balance of getting cards that you need, getting victory point cards, and not letting other people get what they need as well. And every card has a different victory point condition on the back, so every game you play is going to be different. Every time you play, you're going to be collecting different things. So it's a good one. I like it a lot. What do you guys think about Point Salad?
Yeah, I mean, I'll plug this one too, because this is one that I think I gave this to my kids for Christmas. And so we play it quite a bit. And we've played it a couple of times recently. It's really enjoyable because it was an easy learn. And in our home, like, time is at such a premium that nobody's really got time or energy to have this exhaustive, multiple hours to learn and then go through, and it just never happens. And so having something that's easy to grasp, that's fun, that everyone can do is a real winner. And interestingly enough, so even my daughter who's 10 right now, she's the youngest. One of the funniest little anecdotes that I've had is we played this game with her and my older boys too, and we've had a good time. And she got in such a stink about saying, "Dad, this is called Point Salad and there's all these vegetables, but I'm telling you, a tomato is a fruit. Why is it in the game?" I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm going to pretend it is just for the sake of giving my daughter some credit. But the fact that she pulled that out, I every time I play the game, I think this tomato is misplaced. It shouldn't be here.
It's interesting you bring up the tomatoes because my son, my 5-year-old, when we play, and he loves this game, he only ever picks tomatoes. He doesn't like tomatoes in real, like to actually eat. I think he likes the color red, and so he's always picking the tomatoes. But if you look at my BG stats, I keep track of all the plays that we play. He's won over 50% of our games by going the tomato strategy every single time.
I'm going to try that.
Game's broken, apparently.
It is funny how younger kids, when they play games, they pick what they're fixated on. Play after play after play.
Well, you say little kids now. I'm thinking that my new strategy is going to be leave all the onions for Kevin just as a hate draft tactic.
What if you smoke
go
them
the
and
onion.
put them in a salad?
Ooh, smoked.
That seems unnecessary. They're delicious as is.
Smoked onions, but smoked
I
onions
love when
might
they're
be
like
better.
caramelized though. Like,
I mean, I'm a big fan.
I don't know about
but
putting them in salad like
Well,
that.
see, I
but-
prefer grilled onions on a burger rather than raw onions.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
I'm not against
Maybe
onions.
that's an expansion.
So back to Point Salad.
the grilled onion expansion.
The grilled onion expansion.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Back to Point Salad. I think on BGA this is still in alpha, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
And if it still is, and you want to play Point Salad on BGA, then join our Longest Turn Board Game Arena group, and I'll send you an invite, and we'll play some Point Salad, and then you'll have access to the game on alpha.
Well, and you guys know I'm a big fan of the digital too. So to break up the monotony of the workday, it's a nice one to log on and make a couple of plays, and you can get through it pretty quickly, which is always a
Yeah, and you don't have to put a whole lot of thought into it, right? Yeah, you're just hey,
it lends itself very well.
I got the tomato strategy. I'm just going to go after that, or whatever that may be.
Well, and that's the good thing about
Me too.
about the game. So like you bring up the tomato strategy. It's pretty easy to follow. You see a positive number next to a vegetable item that is in front of you on one of your plates. That's what you're going for. So it's like really simple to grasp and easy. But what's really cool is that even though it's simple enough to play with a 5-year-old, it has depth in what you're doing and trying to, okay, you mentioned, Kevin, the hate drafting, right? Like there is choices to make in the game that feel very satisfying and give you more of a thinkier strategy style game without being a thinkier strategy style game itself. I like that about this game.
It's very much a relaxing game to play, which I enjoy. I like,
and the
I like those
intensity-
types of games.
The intensity gets ratcheted up at the last round when you can tell that things are going, because there's been multiple plays where we've had where there's been a clear front runner and all of a sudden you can see that the combination that's left is going to be absolutely brutal. And at the last round, things will get changed. So it can get exciting pretty quick.
It's almost got the Azul feel to it. That last part of the game where, oh, I could stick somebody with these types of vegetables that they don't really like.
Yeah, it's going to get them some negative points, right?
And that could be fun.
Yeah.
It's a good game.
So that's point salad.
So my wife got me and my kids got me for Father's Day a gift a while back that we recently got played, Whistle Stop. Whistle Stop is designed by Scott Caputo and published by Bezier Games. And my wife does a really good job of picking games, even though she doesn't really like games. And as a gift to me, she decided, hey, I'll actually play the game that I picked out for you with you this time. So we got to play Whistle Stop. And Whistle Stop it's a train game where you're trying to go across the continental US from the East Coast to the West Coast. It's a tile placement, pick up, deliver, and it's a route building game, but it's not, and it is, because that tile placement, you're actually building routes as you go. But each of those little tiles that you have a bunch of different potential pathways. So almost it's a hexagonal tile, and almost every single one will have a track going off of it. So you have this interlacing web of tracks that you can go on. And so as you're going, I believe there are something like 6 or 7 different columns on the game board, and you're trying to fill that out essentially. So you're drawing tiles, putting them down, and building out this map. At the start of the game, you only have a few tiles on the board, but by the end of the game, your whole board is filled up with different tiles. On these tiles, you can have, on regular tiles, different colored cube symbols. And I think there are 6 different cube colors that you can do, and these represents the different types of goods. You have 3 of those goods that are your common goods, essentially, and then another 3 that are more of your rare resources. And it's kind of arbitrary, other than the fact that it's harder to come by, or there may be more expensive delivery costs with the rare goods to get to places. But each turn, what you're doing is, at the start of a round, there is a number of coal tokens. So the main 2 types of resources to be able to do stuff in the game is coal and whistles. These are how you're going to be able to move your train. So you have to put coal in your train to be able to move it. On your player boards, you have 4 coal slots or token slots, and you can place these coal or whistles on those spots. So you can have a maximum of 4 actions per turn, essentially. And when you're taking your turn, you choose to spend a coal or a whistle to be able to move. If you spend coal, you must move forward. So you can only go westbound on the map. But if you use a whistle, you have the ability to backtrack a little bit, or you can bypass different stops on the train track that you otherwise wouldn't be able to. Each of the stops are going to be the little cube locations where you're going to be able to pick up a different type of resource. So you're laying out your tracks trying to get specific resources, because on the board there are also different stops that have towns, essentially. And in these towns, what they are is they're looking for specific goods to be delivered to them. If you go to a town and it has a stock share, you can pick up a share in that stock. And so you're trying to get points by getting the most shares in a specific stock in a town, as well as if you get a train all the way to the west side, there are a bunch of little end game scoring conditions. And when you do that, if your train gets all the way to the west and you deliver the goods that are represented there, you score a large amount of points. And then your train is removed from the main board area and put in a spot where you can fill up. It's kind of like a worker placement kind of dynamic. And it's a spot that is a limited space where if I put it there, I can collect a certain amount of resources or points or whatever. And so as the game goes on, more and more trains are going to be filling up those spots. So they're going to become more and more limited, and you're not going to be able to get the bonuses that you may want as much. So there's this strategy between when do I get my train all the way across the board versus how many trains do I leave on the board so I can maneuver around, get to these towns, and pick up the goods that I need. Because any goods that you pick up don't stay with the specific train that you have. They are used throughout, like you collect them on your player board and you can use them anywhere you go. So one train can collect a certain amount of goods and that can be used for another train's fulfillment of a specific requirement. So there's a lot going on in the game as regards to what you can do, but it's a fairly simplistic game, and you're basically choosing to pay either a coal or a whistle to move your train. Then you take your action to move however spaces that you have, pick up your goods, and then if you fulfill a contract, you fulfill it. So it goes pretty quickly. And my wife ended up, like I said, playing this game with me, and she really enjoyed it. And I really enjoyed this one a lot as well. The game has a very simple core that is very rewarding, and it plays out over a certain amount of rounds. And by the end of it, it feels very tight as to where you're going and what you're doing. I liked this one.
Sounds fun. So where does it land in the train games? We've recently played quite a few train games. Where does this one land for you?
So I've only played it once. I think that I would put this one over all of the Iron Rail series. Like, I like it better than any of the Iron Rail series, the Iberian Gauge, Irish Gauge, and Ride the Rails. I liked all of those. It's a lighter weight than something like Railways of the World, right, or Imperial Steam. So it's more accessible, and I like the simplicity of that, and I find it rewarding, but it doesn't give me the same kinds of intense combinations that a game like
it's got to be better than Imperial Steam, right?
I like it better than I liked my play of Imperial Steam, but
I can't think of any better train games than Imperial Steam, honestly. But
no, it's a good game.
It's closer to like a Ticket to Ride level of game, and the Iron Rail series. Maybe a little bit higher in complexity than that, but not by much. I would introduce this to as a gateway game of sorts. I like it. I think it's a good game. I've only played it once. I'd like to play it more.
Now I really want to go play Imperial Steam too. It was out of sight, out of mind a little bit. So another game that I played recently, I've been cleaning through my Origins haul. I think the 6th one just came out, but I got the map pack 4, 5, and 6 of Cartographers from Thunderworks Games. So the other night, Logan and I, my son, sat down and we played these back-to-back 4, 5, and 6. And it was just awesome. It was relaxing. It was a lot of fun. Have you guys played Cartographers?
Yeah, I've played it one time. So and it was fun. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, so if you don't know, Cartographers is a flip and write game. You have a map sheet and you are a cartographer and you're trying to create the most efficient map. Over the course of 4 seasons, cards are flipped over and one by one you add them to your map, and they'll have different shapes on them, different terrains. Some of them will give you a coin if you take the smaller shape. And so you're adding things like woods and water and farmland to your map, and you're coloring in boxes and writing in boxes, and it's similar to Railroad Ink. If you're familiar with that, I would say it's got a little bit more going on with it.
You're using like a pencil though?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. And you like this game?
I liked it. I do like it. I actually do like it with colored pencils. And I'm not an artist, but just adding a little color to it makes it really cool.
I've seen
if you look,
fantastic.
I think Tyler
on social media and on BGG, there's a lot of photos of people's maps, and some of them are incredible. They're just beautiful.
That's part of the reason I don't think I want to play it, is because I feel like I can't make my game look as well as everybody else. No, I just think it's very impressive what some people have been able to do with theirs.
Tyler's team pencil now.
I'm getting there. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know. If this was on BGA, that would be the de facto go-to.
Well, there you go. I'm sure it's on its way. Hopefully, anyway.
Yeah, until he has some sort of incident with lead in his skin experience.
At least mine was like reactional. It wasn't a choice. like Kevin's was.
Oh my gosh. We already talked about my high school brain. It's not fully developed yet, all right? Poor choices were made.
So anyway, Cartographers, in the base game over the course of 4 seasons, you are playing shapes on your map. You're drawing them. You're collecting points. There are 4 different scoring cards that are selected at random at the beginning of the game. 2 of them will be scored at the end of each season. Then it rotates to the next 2 until each one of them has been scored twice. We hadn't played it for a while, and so I was excited to get these maps played. One thing that does come out within the deck is some monster cards. And so when a monster card comes out, you actually pass your map sheet to the player next to you. They get to put that monster shape into the most unfortunate spot for you, and then you pass them back. So you're just temporarily losing your map sheet, and then you get it back. And now you have to fill in around the monsters, or you can take a lot of negative points that way. Anyway, it's a really fun game. I just want to highlight a few things about the different maps that I played. So number 4 was the Frozen Expanse. This one was kind of cool. There were spaces on the map that were scouted out, and you could get bonus points by putting the correct terrain type on those ones. On one side of the sheet, there was a big frozen lake in the middle. On the other side, it was kind of off to the side. But if you built all the way around it, you would get a number of coins added to your coin track. And coins score at the end of each season. So if you can complete the lake or surrounding the lake early on, then you're going to be getting those bonus points each round, which is awesome. It also added some new monsters with special abilities. Logan beat me 107-106. A little bitter about that. Lost by a point. That was map pack number 4. Map pack number 5 was Kethra's Steppe. In this one, this was really cool. You're trying to light beacons.
The beacons are in a city! The beacons are lit! Gun knuckles for 8!
And Rohan will answer. So anyway, that's totally what I thought of when I saw this. So basically, you surround the beacon to light it up, and you'll score 12 points for each beacon that you have lit up. However, any spaces that you don't have filled in the area around the beacon counts as -2 points. So you could actually score negative points if you light the beacon too soon. So the beacons get scored at the end of each season as well. So there are a ton of points there. I don't know what it was about this play, but Logan, we had tons of monsters coming out. I ended up with like -32 points from monsters, and Logan had -21. So we finished tied 43-43. He won the tiebreaker because it's whoever took the least amount of monster damage over the course of the game is the winner.
Oh, wow.
So, we were scored over 100 and then 43-43. The third one, or the third one that we played, map level 6, is Hornhelm Wasteland Market. And this was probably my favorite. Instead of having a double-sided map, one side of the sheet that you write on is the map, and then the other side is a market, which has a 3x3 grid of different items that you can buy. And at the beginning of summer, fall, and winter, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th season, you flip over a market card and it tells you which row or column you can buy an item from. So it had boots, and there was a boat, there was all kinds of different things. I don't know, I can't remember what they were, but basically you buy these items, and then as you meet a requirement for that item over the course of the rest of the game, then you'll get journal points, and you'll go up on this journal track and can score a ton of points from that. Yeah, that one I think was my favorite. It was the most different from the base game, I feel like. But I had fun playing all 3 of them. We played them back to back to back, and it was just really relaxing. And even though there's some take that, the monster attacks, it was just a lot of fun. And I was really excited to get those to the table again. I ended up winning the third one, 106-93, so I was pretty happy about that. Logan's beaten me more and more.
It seems to be
it so happened
lately.
to be your favorite as well.
Yeah. Well,
And
no, I think it, like I said, it introduced the most unique differences to the game. But
Yeah.
Cartographers is awesome. I think you can play these map packs with Cartographer Heroes, which I don't have that game, but I want to go get the first 3 map packs and get those played too. But
Cool. Yeah, a few things about cartographers. So I picked up a cartographer's puzzle.
Oh, you did?
At Origins. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
I did. My wife is a huge puzzle fan. So I'm like, I think she would enjoy this one. She started putting it together last week. And I said, how's it going? She's like, I don't know. This is really hard. So it's like, for some reason, it's a very difficult puzzle, but it's beautiful. It's got the art of, the box art and everything. It just looks awesome. So cartographer puzzles, number 1. The second thing is I remember the monster take that element when we played before didn't go over great with my family.
Yeah, it didn't go over great initially with my family either.
But the more you play, the better that got.
Yeah, I think you just kind of accept, hey, this is going to happen,
right?
And I'm going to try and mitigate this as much as I can. And I don't know, there was no animosity at all, and we were trying to put it in the worst possible spot.
Well, that's what you got. Yeah, that's what you do. That's the game, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I remember really liking it, and I love games where you have an end goal and you're building towards that goal the whole game, and then if it pans out in the end, you get a ton of points. I mean, those types of games are fun. So I got to get this one out again.
Awesome. Do you have it?
I do.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, you could borrow some of the sheets. I'll probably end up laminating them at some point.
Right.
And
that's one of the best things about roll and writes is that like you can continue to play it over and over again. And if you ever come down to your last sheet, you get the opportunity to like laminate
and usually,
them.
even if you don't laminate them, there's a million sheets that come with most of these games, like Welcome to.
I've never run out of anything for a roll and write.
I'm probably not going to play 100 games of Welcome to, or something. I mean, I could, but.
Yeah, I do think it is awesome. Thunderworks Games is creating this whole world of games. You've got role player, cartographers, heroes, lockup, role player adventures. They're coming out with Dawn of Ulos and Goblin.
Which you're not excited about at
all. No, not at all. I can't wait for this. I'm going to be a first day backer. I'll be number 1. I'll be counting down the seconds. And then they're also doing one called Goblin Vaults. And I just think it's so cool that they're creating this whole universe of games, and they're tied together with characters and stories and, backgrounds. And it's just really awesome. It was such a cool idea.
It was fun talking to those guys at Origins. And I got to get more of their games played for sure.
Yeah.
So as somebody who doesn't know cartographers, I'm dying to ask this question. Is there any reference that's made to the inimitable Buster Bluth, who, as all fans of Arrested Development know, spent a significant amount of time at cartography school? Because if not, I
forgot about that.
I feel like that is a swing and a miss. I mean, haven't they already discovered most things, Magellan and those guys? Yeah, they did a pretty good job.
Oh my gosh.
Awesome.
I don't know. Expansion.
I like it.
I would love to see an Arrested Development knockoff cartographers reskin it with a Arrested Development's theme.
Awesome. So that is Cartographers Map Packs 4 through 6.
Nice. Another game I was able to get played. We played this at a recent game night. This is Silver and Gold. So Silver and Gold was designed by Phil Walker Harding and was published by Pandasaurus Games. And I'm going to read just real quick off of Board Game Geek. It's a very short description.
Like one sentence.
Pretty much. Pretty much. It says, distant islands with golden treasures. Who hasn't dreamed of that?
Oh, there was a theme in this game?
Right. That's why.
It's not Christmassy silver and gold. It's islandy treasure.
It's islandy treasure, right?
Yeah, with palm trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says silver and gold combine simple rules, right? Very simple. Fast action, luck, and planning as players try to complete treasure map after treasure map, with the maps being printed on wipeable cards to allow for endless adventures. I did not realize they were treasure maps that we were filling out, right?
We were just talking about cartographers. You were doing the same thing. Little did you know.
I had no idea, right? I just thought it was some weird palm tree game. I don't know. But yeah, so the theme is a little bit pasted on, right? But the way this game works is you have these treasure maps and you're trying to complete the treasure maps. There's a number of squares on the map, so you're trying to fill in. There's a deck of cards that have, Tetris-y type polyomino shapes on them, right? So you take one card out of this deck for each round that you play. You play over 4 rounds, and then you flip over the card and you draw the shape on one of your treasure maps that's in front of you. There's different things on the treasure maps. If you cross off a square that has an X on it, you get to cross off another square on either that treasure map or another one you have in front of you. If you cross off a palm tree, then you get a certain amount of points based on how many palm trees are currently face up that you can count. If you cross off a coin, then you mark off a coin on a row. And if you fill in a row, you get a certain number of victory points based on who does it first, right? That's how you're scoring points. And then if you complete a treasure map, you get points that are indicated on that card at the end of the game. Once you complete one, then there's a row of treasure maps in front of you and you get to select a new treasure map. And you do this over 4 rounds. Whoever has the most points wins. There's bonus points that you can get. You can get a gray treasure map, for example, and there's a little bonus symbol on the right that says for every orange treasure map you get 2 bonus points. So you count up the number of points on your treasure maps, you count up the bonus points, you count up your tree points, you count up your money points, and whoever has the most points at the end of 4 rounds wins the game. So it's a very simple game. It's another one of those, I think, really relaxing games to play where it's not a brain burner. You're just kind of having a good time around the table. There's strategy for sure. It's not deep strategy, but you can say, I'm going to go after these bonus cards and try and get these points, right? Or I'm going to go after the coins, or I'm going to go after a combination of everything type of thing. I had a really good time with it. I played it the first time at Cabin Con, and then we played it, like I said, last week. And it's another one of those games I think my family would really enjoy, and I'll probably end up picking up at some point.
I love this one. This is one that I bring to my family and will play with my family because it's really pretty quick and easy to get taught. I don't even have to refresh myself on the rules like almost at all whenever I play. The last time we played was at Cabin Con, and then we played again recently, and it was easy enough to be like, oh yeah, I remember enough about this game that I can pick it up a year-ish later and be just fine with it, or 6 months or whatever it is. And so I really like it, and my family has had a good time with it. And so it's kind of, you talked about, Tyler, A Gift of Tulips and how that's a great like palate cleansing filler style game. I feel like the same thing about this one, and it does a great job for me at being, okay, we got a few more minutes for the rest of the night. Let's play this to wrap things up.
Well, and it's so much more comfortable marking off with a marker on the card instead of writing with a pencil. There's just a different feel to it. I've really enjoyed. I've played this 4 or 5 or 6 times with you, and I've really enjoyed each play of it. It's a great filler and palate cleanser, like Gift of Tulips.
I do like the cards themselves are like dry erase cards.
Yep.
And so the one downside is they don't include some sort of like cloth or thing to wipe down your thing. So I had to get like a lens cloth from my glasses and stick it in my box. And so you have to wipe all the cards down in between plays, but it doesn't take long at all.
No, that's similar to Railroad Ink type of thing. There's other games that do that. It's a little bit of a minor inconvenience, but the cards themselves are really cool, and marking them off, like you said, Tyler, with the markers is kind of a satisfying experience for whatever reason.
It is a little bit, right?
Yeah, but the question I have for both Kevin and Tyler is, if you get this, how do you sleeve it?
Oh my gosh. There. We'll find a way.
With a border, cut out the face.
Yeah. We'll
So
protect
the back and the sides of the card are protected.
We'll protect as much of the card as we can.
That's right.
We'll find a way. Team sleeve.
Well, continuing on the 2-style name of a game, silver and gold. I've got a blank and blank game that I just have been playing lately. I've got Tigris and Euphrates.
Blank and blank. I thought it was going to be.
That's the perfect segue, and you know it.
Okay.
That was good. That was good.
that was
well done. Well done.
-2 on the segue there. I'm just kidding.
I've listened to your segues, Tyler.
I mean, often I don't even try. So
This is Tigris and Euphrates. I mentioned this back in episode 12 on my list of games in the top 100 on the BGG list that I would like to get played that I hadn't yet. And I finally got around to playing Reiner Knizia's masterpiece game. So what Tigris and Euphrates is this is a game that is set in the ancient fertile crescent between the Tigris and the Euphrates River, where you're building an empire. Every player playing represents some sort of civilization, and you have unique leaders for parts of your government. So basically, you've got farming leaders, a trading leader, a religion leader, and a government leader, and they're all represented by a token. Each token is going to be a specific color, and these tokens are going to be used to control portions of the map. What you're doing is every round you're going to have a hand of, I believe, 6 tiles that you draw out of a bag, and these tiles will represent different parts of the empire. So your farmers, you've got your traders, like your marketplaces, you've got like temples, and you've got different buildings and things like that that you're building. They're basically just colors. And the theme is kind of...
Well, let's face it. It's a Reiner Knizia game, right?
Exactly.
So it's all about the mechanics.
The theme doesn't matter. I mean, it does in some way, but really
Probably
it doesn't
not, though.
matter. But the main difference is each tile is a different color with maybe a different little symbol on it, right? And so what those are is you're placing them on the board, and this board is a board that is divided up in a grid pattern, and every space on there can be occupied. So there are some things like the rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates are on the map, but you can only put like fisher tiles on that specific areas because it's water and you can only put the water tiles there. And then you have already on the board are a number of temples. And these temples are basically how you make your leader strong. So when you place a leader down, it has to be adjacent to a temple. And the more temples that it is adjacent to, orthogonally, the more power or strength it will have if war erupts. So in the game, you can either have war or a revolt, and war will always be using like the temples. What you're doing is as you're placing these tiles on the map begins to expand and grow. And everybody who's playing, this can be played between 2 and 4 players. And so I've only so far played it at 2 players. But usually what happens in those games is you're placing tiles in places where you're not directly adjacent to your competition. And as you're going through, you're placing more and more tiles, and every tile that is in an area represents strength for that leader. So if I have 5 green tiles, that means, and I have a green leader in that section of the map, it means my leader has 5 strength. But I can also do a revolt. So if I can get my tiles to merge a la Acquire style, so like you have it like your hotels in Acquire are coming and growing and then like merge into one. That same type of feature exists in this game where you're going to have these 2 independent groups kind of come together and then one has to fight over the other. So if you have a green leader in both of those, you have to compare the strength. So how many tiles are in mine? I have, like I said, 5 leader tiles in green, but Kevin, you have 3 leader tiles in green. Then it comes to me as the one who had put the tile on the map to merge the sections. I have to go and from my hand of tiles, I can add more green tiles to the conflict. And by doing so, that increases the strength that I have to ensure the battle. But since I started it, I have to before I see what you put down, Kevin, I have to choose what tiles I'm putting down. So if I think I can beat you at 5 and I put nothing because you only have 3, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you don't have any green leader tiles in your hand, I can get away with it. I don't have to put anything down. But then if you come back and you put down 3 leader tiles in green, nothing I can do. You've overthrown that upset, and then my leader is removed from the board and I have to start over. So there's this tug of war back and forth kind of action going on as you're balancing the 4 different or 5 different leaders that you have. Now the kicker is every time you're doing this, you're getting points by the acquiring territories and getting territory control essentially in each separate leader type. So green, red, blue, yellow, etc. And at the end of the game, the amount of points you have at the end of the game are based on your lowest scoring category. So if I have only 1 black tile in my treasure token, essentially, that means that even if I have like 20 in all the other categories, that 1 is going to only be able to score me. So you're trying to have this equal civilization where all of your parts of your government are kind of balanced and working together. So you're trying to figure out where can I take over certain areas of the map, where can't I, and where am I weakest at? And so again, it's got this really interesting tug of war experience to it. I really have been enjoying playing this one a lot. And I think, Tyler, like I said, there's that acquire mechanic in it that I find very fascinating. And you know that I like acquire. I'm nowhere near as good as you. So I would love to play this one with you, Tyler, and see how you feel.
I would love to play it.
When did this one come out? Curious.
It is a reprint, I think.
There's multiple versions of this. It originally was released in 1997. And then I think there's like a 2008 version of it.
Yeah, it's about due for a Ultimate Edition, I think.
Yeah, I definitely want to play this one. It's interesting. You mentioned the scoring, how you only score for your lowest, right?
Right.
So one of my favorite games is Ingenious. I've talked about this one before. Same scoring mechanism in that. And that's the first time I had seen that, where you're trying to move everything up and you're scoring the lowest cube that you've moved up on a track. So it's interesting to see the same design decision between these 2 games. I like Reiner Knizia's games. Raw is one of my favorites, and I'd like to check this one out. I have Babylonia in the bag, ready to go on vacation. We're going to be playing that one next week. That's a Reiner Knizia that I think is in the same line of games as this one.
Like a tile laying trilogy, I think, that he did. This was one of them, Babylonia, and I can't remember the third, but there was
Yellow and...
Is it Yellow and Yangtze?
Yangtze, I think
yes, it is. And I played Yellow and Yangtze. I should have known that one first, but yes.
Yeah, so I'm very interested as well. I know you're excited to play with Tyler, but you should loop me into that game too.
I will play. I really want to, because like I said, I've only played this.
Play Acquire.
I would love to play that too.
Go for it, guys.
No, come on.
No, we talked about this last episode.
I'm not that good.
It's the whole race. It's the whole race for the galaxy.
But it's still a fun game to play, even with Tyler, and he's going to win.
Sure.
It's still a fun game to play. It can be punishing. But this game, I think, has Tigris and Euphrates also can be fairly punishing if you have somebody who does know how to play and you don't know how to play as well, because of that kind of push and pull mechanic and the acquiring things, and you know how to upset things a little bit better. But I would love to see this at a higher player count, because like I said, I've only played it at 2 players, and I can imagine that you have a full 4-player count. The size of the board doesn't change. And so you've got a lot more of these wars and revolts going on. I would imagine that it's a more crowded space. I'd be interested to play that.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds fun.
So I actually had one more game I wanted to talk about really quick. We had an extra hour or so this weekend on Sunday. And so we busted out a classic, a cult classic, and we had a blast with it. This is Killer Bunnies and the Quest for the Magic Carrot.
Oh my gosh.
So have you guys had a chance to play this game?
Played it one time. That's all it took. I mean,
Not playing with a fun group, or whoever taught it did a terrible job?
It was more
or?
not playing with a fun game.
All right. So, well, I think this game's awesome. It's hilarious. We played this all the way going back to like 2006. I have all the boosters. We have a separate copy that just has the base game in it. We played 2 games in an hour and 10 minutes, and it was awesome. And it was so much fun to relive some of those fun moments. In this game, you're trying to play bunnies that give you abilities. You put them out in front of you in what's called the bunny circle. It's very Tableau-like, and actually I think this laid the groundwork for a lot of Tableau games that came later.
I'm going to say no.
So anyway,
this game is not revolutionary in any way.
This game is ridiculous. It's random. It's outlandish. It's funny. There's tons of pop culture references. You're putting bunnies out in front of you, and you're trying to slaughter everybody else's bunnies through, scissors, or dropping a nuke on them, or passing the Ebola virus around, whatever it takes. You can starve other people's bunnies. You're trying to murder them. Tyson, this has tons of take that. You would love it, and you got to try it.
Just because things have taken that does not automatically
Every
make
time
me
we
like
talk
it.
about a game, the thing that you always mention is the take that aspect
Oh,
of
come
the
on.
game.
Murder and bunnies. That's right up your alley.
Yeah.
Murder and bunnies.
So anyway, you're collecting carrots over the course of the game. You're trying to collect the most carrots that you can. At the end of the game, one of the carrots is the magic carrot, and whoever has that carrot wins. However, if you don't protect your bunnies, and you finish at the end of the game, you don't have any bunnies in your bunny circle, you forfeit all of your carrots to the person who has the most Kabbalah Dala, and you're out of luck. In fact, in one of the games, the game was coming down to the end. I abducted Logan's last bunny with an alien, and then Shelly on her turn bought the last carrot. Game ended. I got Logan's carrots. I ended up winning with one of his carrots. It was awesome. So this game's awesome. I mean, a lot of fun. It is what it is. It's a cult classic. You got to go in with a sense of humor, and you'll have a good time. We played 2 games in an hour and 10 minutes. So I don't know.
Okay, so
That's
you
not a
put
selling
in-
point
no,
to
it's
me.
Not, it's not for me either. But so have you played?
Well,
with,
I
have
say
you played,
that because people complain that it takes too long.
Well,
I've heard that in this group.
You get all the Like when I played it, they put in a bunch of expansions. I think we were there for about 3 days playing that game.
Yeah, so that
it like overstayed its welcome by a ton of time. And then how do you win there? You can have 1 carrot and win, right?
Yeah, which is you know what? Every game that we play is about probabilities, and every game that we play has chance in it.
It's true. This is
So
true.
in this game, yes, there is a ton of randomness in it. There's lots of dice rolling. You could play a Mad Donnelly's bakery card, and you roll a dice, and based on what you roll, you get your bunny either dies, you get a carrot, or just there's a lot of randomness in this game, but you still have to protect and have a bunny in the bunny circle by the end of the game. I do like that you're playing your cards 2 rounds in advance. So you put 2 cards face down to start the game. You play the first one, and then you put the next one down. So you're always playing 2 cards in advance of when you'll actually play that card, which is a really cool mechanic that I haven't seen. I can't think of another game that does something like that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. It's the Commissar token in Memoir 44.
Oh, okay. I haven't played that with that.
How do you feel about that token, Mark?
It's a cool wrinkle, but it's a little unfair.
Yeah.
It's a significant disadvantage
Yeah.
because chances are by the time you go to use that card, that things will have shifted and your awesome play that you're teeing up is no longer as awesome.
So, maybe Killer Bunnies paved the way for that mechanic. in
And
Memoir.
the tableau
and the
mechanic.
I just feel like whoever designed this game was watching Monty Python and thought, saw the holy hand grenade scene with the bunny coming out and thought,
That's possible.
I want to
mean,
design the game around a killer bunny, and that's
the
it.
cartographer guy could have been watching Return of the King, and then he came up with the beacons idea.
And Rohan will answer.
Yeah, but at least that became a good game.
Hey, you can't judge a game until you've played it.
Well, and I've
in
played
all
it.
fairness,
I've played it. I feel the same way about Killer Bunnies as I do about Flux.
yeah.
Have you guys played Flux?
Yeah,
So Flux can be like a 5-minute game,
or a 3-hour.
or it can be like a 3-hour game. It can overstay its welcome for what it is. But I understand the appeal of the theme. I will play Flux. Probably the only Flux I would want to play at this point is Monty Python Flux, just because it's hilarious. And when you play, you're quoting the movie. Everybody's quoting the movie. And even some of the cards say you need to sing a song from the movie and that kind of thing, which just always turns out to be a fun experience.
So Robin ran away.
When I played Killer Bunnies, I was like all about strategy games. I'm like, if there's any luck in a game, I don't like it. That was like the phase that I was in. So it's probably a product of the phase in gaming that I was in. I think if I played it now, I probably would enjoy it more because I appreciate randomness in games more. I appreciate luck in games more because it provides for those exciting experiences. And I could see, okay, if I have one carrot and that carrot gets flipped over and I win, that's pretty cool. That's a cool experience. So I give it a hard time, but I think if I played it now, it'd probably be a different experience than playing it before.
And so there are a number of booster decks that add new mechanics, and there's a huge variety of cards that can get added to this game. It does extend the length of the game as you add in more booster decks, but it also creates different experiences.
But would you like the game? Like, would you introduce the game to somebody for the first time by putting a bunch of stuff in it?
No, and that's why we keep two separate decks. So we have one deck that has any number of booster packs mixed in it at any one time, and then the other one is just completely just the base game.
Because that would be my fear is that the only thing I can think of, like, it reminds me of Munchkin. I've looked at Killer Bunnies and I've seen it played, and it reminds me of Munchkin. And I really liked Munchkin at the very early part of my gaming experience, and I played it a lot, enjoyed it. Kind of like
you found
Flux,
good games, right?
Yeah. Kind of like Flux because it like was playing on it was a parody on a bunch of different themes and a bunch of different things, which was fun, right? And I liked that for a time, but then quickly became aware of a lot of the warts on Munchkin.
Yeah.
And that's how I perceived Killer Bunnies every time that I've seen it. If it doesn't take like an inordinate amount of time to play and doesn't feel like it's dragging out. We talked about Silver and Gold and the Gift of Tulips, right? Those are filler games. That's what I feel like Killer Bunny should be, is in that category. But it sounds to me like there is the chance that it doesn't do that and it overstays its welcome, and that's what concerns me.
It's like any game, like Carcassonne. You add in any number of expansions, you're extending the length of that game a ton. And
right.
It's the same thing with Killer Bunnies.
So, question. So, part of your love for the game and experience with it is nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
Because you played it before, you have those positive experiences before. If you hadn't played it before and you played it now, do you think you would enjoy the game?
Thinking about this,
having your knowledge of games now and what it is.
While Tyson was talking a second ago, I was thinking about this. I think when we got this out, like, I was probably 60% excited to play, and 40% of it was just excited for the nostalgia of it. Right. It's not a perfect game. It is what it is. If you go into it, it's a lighthearted. I mean, you're killing. I mean, one of the cards is one of your bunnies is smothered in barbecue sauce, bound to a stick, and slowly cooked for a hillbilly hoedown. Like, there's all these different ways that your bunnies can die, and it's just hilarious.
I'm thinking this is super popular at PETA meetings.
Yeah, right? Yeah, but like the pop culture references there are hundreds of them, and I love that. It's hilarious. When I played Clank, and Clank is a much better game, the pop culture references in that, I was like, man, this is like straight from a Killer Bunnies card. And that's what it kind of reminded me of. Clank's a much better game. Killer Bunnies is fun. It is what it is. You go into it. expecting a lighthearted, I'm going to slit your bunny's throat.
In the right situation, you bring it out, I'll try it. And I do really love the tongue-in-cheek kind of humor, like the play on pop culture stuff. And I've enjoyed a lot of games like that. I would give it a chance for that experience. And disregarding the fact that I think it's going to be, whether or not the gameplay itself is going to be the best experience.
There's got to be some merit to it, though, if you can combine lightheartedness and slitting throats in the same experience. I mean, that's hard to pull off.
Different times, Mark.
Light-hearted throat slitting. Yeah, that's a tough one.
So this was my 2002 Spiel nominee that should have won. Oh, wait, that was last episode.
Oh, my gosh. This should not win any awards. Oh, my gosh.
So that's Killer Bunnies and the Quest for the Magic Carrot. There are many more games in the collection. Stay tuned for future episodes.
All right, so I think that wraps up our what we've been playing lately section. Let's move on to Kevin and a rules overview of our feature review, Moonrakers.
Moonrakers is designed by Max Anderson, Zach Dixon, Austin Harris, and published by IV Games. Moonrakers is a game of shipbuilding, temporary alliances, and shrewd negotiation set in a spacefaring future. Players form a loose band of mercenaries called the Moonrakers, but while they are united in name, actual alliances are shaky as players are pitted against each other in the quest to become the new leader of the Moonrakers. Moonrakers is a deck-building game in which players choose contracts to attempt alone or with allies in order to gain prestige and credits. After negotiating terms with potential allies, players use their action decks to play thrusters, shields, weapons, reactors, and crew to fulfill the requirements on each contract. Each type of card has other effects to keep turns going, such as extra actions, additional cards, and protection from hazards encountered while attempting contracts. Players build powerful action decks and special abilities by upgrading their ships and hiring crew with the credits they receive from completing contracts. This helps them accomplish more difficult and rewarding contracts alone, which lets them keep more prestige for themselves. Who will receive the prestige, credits, and risks of hazards from contracts is all negotiated between allies. But if players don't make their offers enticing enough, other players may be tempted to betray them. The first player to reach 10 prestige wins, but be careful. Running into hazards on contracts reduces prestige. To play Moonrakers, players take turns as the mission leader. The mission leader's turn consists of 3 phases: planning, execution, and buying. At the start of the planning phase, the mission leader has 2 options: choose a contract or stay at base. To choose a contract, the mission leader may choose any of the face-up contract cards next to the dispatch board and place it on the table for potential allies to see. To complete a contract, the mission leader and any allies must meet the requirements by playing an equal or greater number of action cards that match the icons on the bottom of the contract card. After selecting a contract, the mission leader may attempt the contract alone or invite others to join as an ally. Multiple players may join a contract as allies. If another player chooses to join the contract as an ally, they play their active hand as they would on their own turn, contributing any action cards and ship part specials to the contract requirements. Players can negotiate over anything that appears on a contract, including prestige, credits, bonus cards, and who rolls the hazard dice. If players can agree, the mission leader can pick a new contract, but they can only negotiate for help on up to 2 contracts per turn. They must solo a contract for their third selection or choose to stay at base. Once a contract has been chosen, the mission leader and allies enter the execution phase. Begin the phase by collecting the amount of hazard dice found in the bottom right of the contract card. Players each take the number of dice they negotiated for. If there are no allies, the mission leader rolls all the dice listed on the contract. Each player will suffer from hazard equal to the number of hazard icons that appear on their dice. Each hazard a player rolls will cost that player 1 prestige unless they play a shield by the end of the execution phase. Each shield blocks 1 hazard icon. All negotiations are locked and no additional allies may join a contract after the hazard dice have been rolled. Players then attempt the contract and enter the execution phase. All players begin the execution phase with 1 action, which allows the player to play 1 action card. Reactor cards give players an additional 2 actions, allowing the player to play additional action cards. Some ship parts and crew cards also add additional actions that can be used. A player may continue playing action cards until they run out of actions, or run out of action cards to play from their hand. Once the mission leader and allies have all played, players check to see if the contract was completed. A contract is successfully completed when the requirements on the contract card have been fulfilled. Once all players have finished playing their action cards, players collect the rewards listed at the top right of the contract per the previously negotiated terms. Players must honor the negotiated terms. If the contract fails, no rewards are given out. The players that rolled hazard dice must still use shields to block the hazards or lose prestige. The mission leader may also decide to not attempt a contract and instead to stay at base. Mission leaders who choose this option do the following. They draw new objective cards, keeping 1. They collect 1 credit for protecting the base, and if desired, they can replace an available contract with one from the top of the contract deck. The mission leader then moves to the buy phase. During the buy phase, ship parts can be purchased and crew members can be hired. Ship parts and crew members will give you abilities that will help you successfully complete contracts and make you a valuable ally. Once the buy phase is over, the mission leader discards all cards not played and draws up to 5 cards in hand. The person to the left becomes the new mission leader. Play continues until someone reaches 10 prestige and becomes the new leader of Moonrakers. So that's how you play. Let's get back to the table to see what we thought of Moonrakers.
Thanks, Kevin, for going over the rules for us of Moonrakers. Let's dive into this game and talk about what we think about it. To start, let's go with the production of this game. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your feelings on the production of Moonrakers?
So I think the production's great. The first thing I noticed, and I noticed this about a lot of games that have this component, is the metal coins, right? And the fact that I think every copy of this game comes with metal coins, which is awesome. I just love the tactile feel of them. I like when you drop them on each other and they make a little clinking noise. I don't know. I just think that the metal coins that's one thing that really stands out to me, and is one of the first things I noticed about the game.
I really just like the feel of these coins and any metal coins in general in games. It's a great addition to a game, I think. And it seems like a simple addition, even though it may be a more expensive edition, but I like it. Kevin, you were saying that those really stood out to you. I think the thing that stands out to me about Moonrakers is the color palette. Like, the choice of colors in this game is deliberate and intriguing. It makes me want to know more about the game already. I remember when this one was on Kickstarter the first time, and I was looking at it and I was like, this is just gorgeous. Like, the colors, like, it's got this deep purple with these kind of almost pastel, but not quite pastel colors that I really thought were really evocative, especially when you contrast that with the space theme. Like, it just, to me, it gives the vibe of this kind of alternate world space explorer feel. And I love that all the components and all the art in this game are very tonal in the color choices.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. That's one thing that I loved and noticed right off the bat when we started playing it.
Yeah, I thought that the detail that went into even like the player board, it was very sharp, but it wasn't super busy. Like, a lot of times when you talk about detail and intricacy, it's just layer upon layer upon layer. That's not the case. You know, with Moonrakers, it feels and looks very simplistic, but still has a tremendous amount of detail. The pieces are well done. They hold up well. They're user friendly, right? I think it was done pretty well.
And the player boards themselves, like it's got these kind of glossy areas on them that it's actually the actual ships on the boards, which I think are cool. And if you look at the player boards, are all different. Yep. They have different designs on each of the boards, which I think I appreciate games that have that touch, that take the time to do different designs for different players. And I think that was really cool.
One thing that I love about the boards too is it shows you what your starting deck is. And also the other boards that are played out in the main space of the game, they have like the starting setup card layouts on them too, which is just a really nice little detail that helps you get this to the table really quick.
Well, and not only that, but like you mentioned the starting setup cards on your board. I can't tell you how many times in a game I reference that and then look at my discard pile to see how many cards I have so I know what's coming up and what my probabilities are. Because in this game, probabilities are important. So having it printed right there on my board makes me understand, okay, what are my options here? And I thought it was a great production decision to put that there and all over, like in all the setup spots, because it helps me not to have to ask dumb questions when I'm like, oh, wait, how many cards do you start with of this type or what? So that people don't know what my motivations are. And I love when a game makes those considerations.
Or I picked up this ship part. Did I get 2 thrusters with that when I was supposed to?
Yeah.
I'm going to count the cards, and see how many cards I have to see if I actually did that.
See, that was something I noticed too. Like, I thought it was well done that on the ship parts, number one, they're on smaller cards, right? And even though they're smaller physically, they show you everything that comes with the benefit at the time that you acquire that. It gives you the benefit that you can use and you can play, so that, and it's done really concisely. And sometimes you look at player cards and there's a ton of, little characters and things like that. They get really busy. Didn't feel that way with these. Like, even with a smaller piece, you can understand what the requirement is to get it, what the benefit is to get it, how to use it, where it goes. And when there's so many things that are going on at the same time, and especially in a 5-player game, it's hard to keep track of, okay, what capabilities do I have and where do I want to go? And so when it's easy to look at something, from across the table and say, okay, my strategy was to acquire that piece, and to be able to recognize easily what it's going to take and how I can use it, that's pretty well done. I appreciated that.
One thing that I love about this game is the cards, the verbiage on the cards is really well done. I don't think we ever once went to or were confused about a card and had to do a rules reference to try and figure out what it meant.
I think there was one time.
If you play something like Anachrony or one of the T games, you're going to be in the back of the book. Okay, what does this scoring card do? Or, there was none of that. It was just right there for the most part, very self-explanatory, really beautifully done.
Well, you see anything that they've put out and it's just beautiful, right? Like that is clearly an apparent, decision for them when they make a game, that they want it to be intuitive and flow and be easy to pick up and understand. Now, I'm going to go back and contradict Mark just a little bit in that I agree that when all those cards are on the table for the market area and all the contracts there, etc., a lot of that iconography is very easy to see from across the table. But when you play a 5-player game and you're further away from those cards, the issue I have with some of those is the character cards and some of the ship part cards. It can be difficult to read the exact text of what's going on, and they can be lengthy in some of the text that is on those cards. But like you said, Tyler, that it's pretty clear what that is once you see it.
That's a common issue with a lot of games, I think. And I think I agree with you. That's the only negative I had with this game. And while I like the color palette and I think it looks beautiful, some of the cards are dark.
Right.
And because they're dark and because of the choice that was made with some of the colors for the letters and stuff, it's just a little bit harder to see than even other cards in games that have a similar issue. Right. So that's my only real complaint with it.
I agree with that. This is an environment thing that I want to solve. I want to have a green screen, a camera set up. This issue happens a lot in a lot of games, especially when the game is a table hog and you can't see what's on the other side of the table. I would love to have displays in a way, no matter where you're sitting at the table, you can see what's on the table. And someday I'm going to solve that.
Well,
I don't know how much money it's going to cost. I'd like to figure that out, though.
We've gone as far as taking pictures of the cards, and then you have it on your phone, and then you have it as a reference, right?
Yeah, but I want a live feed of these are the cards available. Hey, I'm going to move my iPad over here and see. Okay, cool.
I think that you're right, Tyler. This is for a lot of games. For board games in general, it can be a general issue. But I would go back to what Tyler was or Kevin was saying, rather, that the color choice for the text in particular can be difficult in this game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if you had that, like on a big screen TV, it still may be difficult because of the color choice to read what the exact text is. I like it aesthetically because it's staying with the same color per the ship part. So if you're getting a green card, your text is going to be green. If you're getting a purple card, your text is going to be purple. But I think that it could be an issue regardless.
If you got a big enough TV, I think you'd probably be fine. But
okay, so if we go back to what Tyler was saying about, regardless of the expense of this, we could solve this
put
problem.
it on a projector and project against the wall. You got some 65 inches over there, right?
Yeah, we could angle one the right way, and
Yeah, sure. Why not?
just need the right camera set up. And I've explored solutions on this before. I want to figure this out.
So in full disclosure too, the reason why, I made the opinion that I liked how the parts cards were smaller. I was the one who was sitting closest to them in proximity the times that we've played it. So, you guys were on the other side of the table looking at it from different angles. So that probably affects why, it was a little more difficult for you. They just happened to be right in front of me. And I thought, oh, okay, I can makes a difference.
It does. It makes a difference for sure.
Right. And if you're right side up, that you're right, Mark. Like they are very intuitive. They are very easy to see. And I like that about it.
Yeah. And where you sat at the end of the table.
Well, both times
was
that
it both
I've
times
played
you did?
it.
Yeah. And
yes.
you were the furthest away from those cards. So yeah, that makes sense.
Well, and I'll offer one more dissenting opinion about the color of the cards too being black. I actually like that because I thought in the deck cards, just having the single black with the colored icon of what action it was, for whatever reason, I thought that was super cool. There was no fluff. This is what it is. It was black. It, followed the theme of being in space, right? To me, I just thought that was pretty cool.
So going back to the coins, I thought it was pretty cool. At one point, I think Dan flipped a coin to decide which ally he would accept on the contract he was working on.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
That was actually pretty cool. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, so I think that's a good segue into the gameplay of this game. Let's talk a little bit about what we like in regards to how this game plays. Tyler, do you want to start us off in some of that?
I mean, for me, foremost in this game is the interaction that goes on when you're negotiating contracts with other players. And by far, this game has more interaction and negotiating than any game that our group normally plays. When I try and think of something else that even comes close, I think of Shadows over Camelot, but that's
cooperative. It has to be,
Yeah, and it's not the same. And so for me, it was the negotiating. It created just lots of funny experiences, lots of intense experiences. There are just some cool decisions there that go on. And I like how the negotiating evolves over the course of the game. Initially everybody's pretty, hey, yeah, sure, I'll ally with you. And, and you're encouraged to ally early on in the game. And then as the game goes further along, it gets a little more selective of who you want to ally with and what the price you're willing to pay to allow, someone to ally with you.
I'm not giving you a prestige point. There's no way. That type of thing.
Yeah. So the negotiating stands out. It sets this game apart for me above any other game that we've played as a group, and I love it.
I mean, that is the core to this game, is being able to make deals and figure out what things are going to work best for you and for others. And I think the game lends itself very well to enhancing those experiences all around, whether or not that's like you said, that progression of the game where you start out all on the same foot and everybody's going, but then you can clearly see where people are having advantages or disadvantages. The contracts that you're fulfilling are going to have different bartering resources there. Some are going to have points for winning. Some are going to have cards that you can get immediately. Some are going to have coins, and some are going to have a combination of all of those. So it makes the decisions very interesting because sometimes, like I've noticed that at the start of the game, the coins often are like, people are willing to do a lot of things to get coins in this game because that's how you buy new cards. That's how you buy new ship parts and crew members and things like that. And so it's very important. But as the game goes on, those coins become less and less important because they don't really determine the the end game scoring very much, but those free cards can be a big deal. And then even at the end of the game, really what you want is those points. And so I like the way that you have different things that you can negotiate with. But I think my single favorite part about the negotiation is the ship parts. I love the ship parts because they have so many different options to encourage different types of negotiation. At first, when I played the first time, Logan played with us, Tyler, and he had an ability that gave everybody an extra action on their turn, but it didn't give him an extra action. So it incentivized people to want to bring him on their missions because it gave them more control over what they could do. And there were a number of ship parts that do different things like that. And I thought that was brilliant.
And the other thing, I mean, he had a ton of shields. So he was taking in all the hazard dice, and he was killing it in that game until disaster struck.
Until he wasn't.
Yeah. he rolled, what, two or three hazard dice and had 5 or 6 symbols.
Double hazards.
He lost 3 or 4 points on that turn, and that was brutal.
Yeah, so as far as the negotiations go, I think one of my favorite parts is when you get a contract and you're like, okay, I know I can't fulfill this. I'm going to ally with one other person, and let's see if we can do it, right?
Yeah.
And then if you barely squeak it out and you fulfill that contract and you maximize your return, that feeling's awesome.
Yeah.
And going into it not knowing that you're going to fulfill it.
Yeah.
That whole press your luck part of the game is super fun, and it can create exciting moments. It can create like comebacks, or like we played a game and Tyson was a little bit behind, but he completed a contract on his own, and boom, 3 prestige, and he was right there. So, when you can maximize your return and you barely squeak by, it's a fun experience.
Well, and 3 is a lot of points in this game, right? And it's not like I even had the opportunity there that if I had fulfilled you have your own individual contracts as well, or objectives, right? Yeah, you have your own individual objectives, which can get you points that nobody knows about, which is interesting because that can push the envelope. And I was one shield shy of being able to do it. And that push your luck that you just mentioned, Kevin, was in there because you're trying to get all the cards you are, so you're counting the probabilities of, okay, if I do this, I'm going to draw these cards, which will allow me to do these things, and I'm going to get more and more opportunities. What are my chances of getting the things I want? And that's very exciting, I think. It has the potential to create big moments.
I agree with Tyler. The interaction is the biggest foundational piece of this whole game, because what it means is that it's your turn every time. You have an action every play. If you are good enough
if people like you enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't have to just sit there and wait for, your turn to come back around. Like if you play your cards right, or if you're thinking far enough ahead, you have something to offer, at least to be part of the conversation instead of just, sitting there. Which, the first time we played, Tyler had an interesting experience where he kind of got shut out for a little bit. But, that aside, when the game is in action, everyone has the opportunity to say, okay, I can benefit from this. I can sabotage this. I can affect the outcome of this game.
I think it's fun too when you're not going to get allied with. You're also playing a naysayer role. Like, oh, you don't want to ally with him.
Right.
Like, oh, what are you doing? You're going to give him too much prestige, or that's you're giving him quite a few coins. Are you sure you want? He's not taking on any risk.
Right, I am giving him a lot of coins.
It's open season on what you want to say.
And you see the glint in the eye of the person who's like, oh, I'm going to get away with something. And then somebody comes in and be like, no, you're offering too much.
Oh, you jerk. You shut your mouth.
How dare you?
Right.
I could have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
Which is a totally different experience. If you were sitting around playing Azul and you see someone about to, if I see Tyson's about to give Kevin 4 blues and I'm like, hey, Tyson, don't do that. You'll give him 4 blues. That's kind of annoying, right?
I still do it, but yeah.
No, but, or if somebody says,
but it's
Logan,
like
if you're bluffing, you're walking home.
Yeah, it's part of it.
I did say, if you're not bluffing, you're walking home. I did say that.
He was bluffing, though.
He was
bluffing.
He was bluffing. I knew it.
Well, the other part of the gameplay that I thought was really good is that as the game progresses, Tyler already talked about this a little bit, but you can make yourself more attractive to work with because you have better capabilities that you can gain. And what I didn't realize the first time that we played is how that works, where, kind of the starter guide talks about allying with others early and often. Well, in order to do that, you have to make yourself, more valuable. You have to be able to bring more to the table when you do that. And on the replays that we did, I realized that it was so much easier to collect those ship parts, collect the crew members so that you could come back and say, look, I can offer more than the player to the next to me, which means that I can get more coins, I can get more prestige, I can get more, whatever. And all of a sudden you can kind of box out some of the other guys. So it gives you a little bit more control at the negotiating table. I just wish I would have realized that during the first play.
I will say too, like the first game we played, the negotiations were a little awkward and slow and a little overwhelming at times. And I think we got really efficient by the end of that game and then throughout the replays that we did of this game, where our negotiation was pretty on point and quick and effective.
Yeah, that's one of the things I had under like the neutral points about the game. It's like, it's not a good, it's not a bad. It's like the first time you play this, it might be a little weird, right? Yeah. Because like that first negotiation, we're like, now what do we do?
Yeah, right.
It's like, do you want a coin? But we did get a lot better at that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, without it, when you start off, you could potentially be in a scenario where if everyone just flat out refused to contribute, nothing would ever happen, and it would just go around with nobody closing any contracts.
Yes and no, but they have the opportunity to stay at the base, right? So I thought that was a great design choice. There were good things about staying at the base, because staying at the base allows you to get a coin, which coins are good to be able to buy stuff. Things aren't terribly overpriced in this game. Most things are between 2 and 4 coins, so it's like pretty easy to purchase things. So you get an extra coin, and on your next turn, likely you're going to be able to buy something. And then you have, by staying at base, the opportunity to draw new objectives, and those can give you motivations and things of where you can go.
And you can get rid of a contract as well, which is a strategic decision, because you're looking at who's coming up next and what they can potentially fulfill. And you're like, I'm getting rid of that one because I don't want them to get that contract by themselves. Type of thing.
And you know what people have in their decks, which action cards they have, and what they've acquired over the course of the game. Going back, I don't know who was it that mentioned the push your luck.
Yeah, I brought that up earlier.
So I love that at the end of the game, every single game that I played, I lost. I love that too. Well, I was at 9 points a couple of times, but every single game I had a turn where I went for it and just came up slightly short, but trying to create that epic moment of, you know what, I'm going to win it on this turn. And if I don't, at least I tried. So go big or go home. I think one time I came up one hazard symbol too many. I got up to 10 points, went back down to 9, didn't win that game. It was funny. Mark won the first 2 games we played. The first game was you were trailing pretty big, and Kevin and I were right up at near the top.
I was at 9, I think.
Yeah, and then Mark came out of nowhere and through some sly negotiations and
sneaky objectives ended up winning. We played a game without Mark, and we were like an hour into it, and we were getting close to near the end. And I was like, man, I still feel like Mark's going to show up at some point and win this game. But
full disclosure, though, I feel like every waking moment of my life, I'm trying to convince somebody to do something they don't want to do. And so when it comes to negotiating, that's just kind of how I operate.
It comes naturally.
That's a skill you have. And that's funny.
And the point that I was going to make, is agreeing with Tyson in that the objectives in the times that I played it became very, very helpful. Being able to have that option to stay at base to get new objective cards was really helpful, because at the end, as you get closer to the 10 prestige points, people are less likely to want to help you finish contracts or negotiate with you, which means you're going to have to take that, close that final mile yourself. And to do that with contracts, the way that the game plays out, the more contracts come out, they get more difficult to do by themselves, at least, the plays that we did, which means that, having extra objectives decreases the risk of you getting stuck at 9 and not being able to do. And so the first play we had, I was several points behind, but I was kind of, lurking in the shadows, if you will. And it just all came together in such a way that I didn't have to get stuck, because I could just, put all my plays together in a sequence that it worked out. And that's how it did. But it wouldn't have been possible without the option to stay at base, take extra coins, use the objectives, instead of just saying, I have to fill a contract. Well, nobody wants to deal with me because I either lied and sabotaged a negotiation, or I'm about to win. And so that is a really necessary piece. And I thought that was well designed.
I think that's a good jumping off point into some of the things that maybe don't work as well with this game, or maybe didn't resonate with us necessarily, right? There are a few in this game that I think that we can talk about. Mark, you were just talking about the objectives and how great they are to give you a direction to go, and I think that's absolutely true. But contrasting that, for me, one of the interesting things that I struggled with in this game was that, when you're getting close to that finish line, you don't have a lot of options to work with people. And you're right, Mark, in that I think naturally the game is going to develop where the harder contracts are going to be left over most games, because people aren't going to be able to fulfill them or whatever. And so the easy contracts are not going to be readily available, so people can't fulfill them all on their own. So towards the end of the game, there's this point at which you have to, it's a slowdown, right? Like things tend to slow down towards the end of the game, where it kind of hits this traffic jam where everybody starts to get close to the finish line, and you can see the person who is closest in striking distance to winning, and everybody stops working with that person altogether. And that's naturally going to be the case in this game. So you have to have alternatives to be able to win. Those objectives almost become necessary for completing the game. And maybe that's a feature of the game that just didn't resonate with me. And I think it could be, but I didn't love the experience of the game has this speed at which everything felt like it was moving along quickly, and then it slows down towards the end, and people don't want to do the part of the game that I think is the coolest, is those negotiations and that kind of wheeling and dealing. I love that.
So let me ask a question about that, because I was trying to figure out where to place this as a like or a dislike about this game. But really there's two ways that you can win, right? That you get prestige points, either through contracts or through objectives. That's it. So every action funnels into those two items. When you compare that with other games, there are multiple ways not only to score points, but have multipliers, bonuses. It's much more wide open and varied how you can, resolve and come up with in-game scoring. So the question I have is, and I think I've got your opinion on this, Tyson. I like that it was simplistic in the fact that there's only two ways you can get points, and you can only get points. That's it. That's the only way that you can win. But the ways that you do that are variable. What I'd be curious to know is, what do you guys think? Did you like that, or did it oversimplify things? Was it limiting or too restrictive? I mean,
I think the fact that there's only 10 points to get in the game, and as you're talking about it, I'm kind of changing my opinion on it a little bit, right? Because I think it's more a me problem than a game problem as you get towards the end of the game. I don't think in a few of my plays I was preparing enough, and it's probably just that I didn't have enough experience with the game to know how that end game played out, but I wasn't preparing for the end game the way that I should have, right? So I probably should have been going to base and getting more objective cards, just to make sure that if I get to 9 and nobody wants to do anything with me, that I have options of how to get that final point. I could get lucky, and there could be a contract that comes up that I can fulfill myself, which happened in the last game that we played. But, I can't rely on that. I've got to get objectives. I got to work towards those objectives and set myself up at the end of the game to get to that last spot. And I think I initially thought that was a negative, but I don't think that's a negative necessarily. I think you just need to know what to expect in the game. And the fact that there's only 10 points in the game, it places a premium on every point that you get. So I mean, I don't know.
For me, it's not a negative at all. I love that part of the game. I feel like in the games that I've played, I've always been leading or near the top of leading. And one game in particular, I knew I was going to come up short. I was getting tons of points from objectives, but I was trashing cards in my deck, and my deck was terrible. And I knew I was going to run out of steam or run out of gas at the end of the game and come up short. And sure enough, I got to 9 points and then I sputtered out. But I love that, just because someone gets to 9 points first, very rarely has that meant that they are going to win. Which you think if they got to 9 points first, they're most likely gonna win, which also creates the, hey, he's at 9. This might be my last turn. I'm at 7. I gotta go big or go home. I'm gonna try this big, huge contract by myself or with some other ally who's trailing behind, right? I love that you have to be creative at the end of this game and you have to plan for it. Part of it is buying objectives, like you said, saving some of those for the end, I think, and then also building your deck that if you have to, you can go after a contract at the end that might be worth a couple points, that if you pull it off, that's going to be awesome.
So I don't disagree with what you guys are saying. My negative is not how the game.
It's more that it slows
the slowdown
gameplay.
Yeah, it's the slowdown that bothers me because the pacing of the game feels like everybody's involved, everybody's a part of the game, and then towards the end of the game, it slows down. And you're right, Tyler, there are those opportunities. Kevin mentioned it earlier when I was able to score 3 points and jump up to 8 or 9 points to be like right with the pack of everybody. It lent itself to a decision for me to make saying, I got to risk something or else I'm not going to be competitive in this game at all, which creates a moment that I think is exciting, but the slowdown is there. And then if I make that, so if I make my jump to 8 or 9 points, and this is a 4 or 5 player game, nobody's going to want to work with me on that last quote unquote round. So if I made that jump and made that risky move and it pays off at the end of the game, it really didn't matter because I was never going to get another turn because somebody else was going to clinch the win right there after that. So it was just this slowdown that what I didn't like.
I think the same slowdown happens when we play Ankh. The game's moving along, it's going, and then near the end of the game, it starts to really slow down, especially when 2 players have merged and now there's this whole discussion phase.
But that's a different slowdown. The slowdown in that, the merge is what makes that good in Ankh for me because I still have to work with somebody.
Right, but the gameplay comes to a screeching halt at some.
But what I'm saying is I'm sitting as opposed to the rest of the game. I'm sitting at the end of the turn, hoping that I get another turn, but realizing that I most likely will not get another turn because somebody else is going to clinch that win at the end. Whereas in Ankh, I can still be thinking I'm going to be participating in battles and I can try and figure out how to manipulate the thing so that it works in my favor. There is a slowdown, you're not wrong, but the slowdown in Moonrakers for me just made it feel
that's
less involved.
Though, right? Most games are like that. Towards
you're
the end.
trying to eke out the last few points.
Yeah, But I can see what you're saying, though, there.
I want to double click on this one a little bit just because, I feel like, at least in my mind, the options start accelerating. Like the thinking sharpens and you're like, okay, what if, the flow chart, if this, then, starts breaking down. And what I wonder is if the slowdown that you're seeing, if that wouldn't happen, if there was a little, tweak to the setup where the negotiations could be, if you had a little pad of paper or something like that to show what you're offering and what you're asking for. Because, the experience that I had was when I was getting close and I was trying to put together a really complex move by, closing out a contract, in a 5-player game, I don't want to share all the benefits with all 5 people. So I'm only going to take on two allies. Well, you offered me this, Tyler offered me this, Kevin offered me something different. How do I keep straight who offered me what so I can make that decision quickly so it doesn't just come to a grinding halt?
But the slowdown, I don't think, comes from the negotiation. I think the slowdown comes from the lack of negotiation.
Because people stop working with each other.
There's actually probably not, like in terms of turns being longer. That's actually not true, I don't think, in this game. I think where the slowdown, it's a mental slowdown. It's not necessarily an actual time clock slowdown, but because I do not, at the end of the game, have the opportunity to join in negotiations.
And that's when you join in the naysaying of, hey, you don't want to do this. And
Sure.
I mean, you're throwing barbs left and right. You're trying to manipulate people to do what you want to do, even if you know you're not going to be
But if
involved.
everybody
It's just a
is
different
stopping.
style game at the end. That's
Right.
all it is.
But if
It's
everybody
yeah.
is stopping from like participating, like at the end of the last game we played, for example, nobody wanted to work with anybody, so it was individual turns, like which is still fine. Like you're right, Kevin, it is a different style of a game. But that's where what I'm talking about is my favorite part of this game is if I've built up my ship to work with people, which is where I really liked. I liked being involved in the negotiations and part of the mission. The end of the game loses that aspect of it, which again may not be a problem, but I think it's something people should be aware of.
And on the flip side of that, for me, if someone unnecessarily allies with someone else and allows them to win by allying with them unnecessarily,
I totally
that
agree.
ruins the game.
That's
for
king
me.
making.
I totally agree.
It's
That's
terrible.
I'm saying that the design itself lends it to that. There is no, like, I'm not saying there's a better solution with what the game is, but it lends to a slowdown where you're not going to be doing it. And I don't want the king making
The
aspect.
potential that is there is a negative for me. It didn't happen in our games, but it is a possibility, and that like makes me cringe.
Well, see, I think
Don't play
that's-
with those types of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think so much of that, I don't know if that's, a result of the game itself so much as it is the group that you play with. Because if, the level of enjoyment of the game is dependent upon the quality of the negotiations, there's nothing inherent about the game that does that. That just provides the medium through which that occurs. You have to have the right people who think about it and that are, investing in, okay, well, I'll do this, I'll do that, and they're participating. But if everyone just sat on their hands and never offered anything, we would all give thumbs down, right?
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point where you stop asking for allies because, I mean, it wouldn't feel right if you won that way unless you did it where you had a hidden objective that you were also completing.
Take it from behind kind of a thing.
Well, I
Right,
remember in one of the plays we did, I think maybe Tyson, it was you who somebody felt the wrath of a couple of hazard die and actually had to lose a couple of points and effectively was far behind. Well, as soon as that happened, I thought, all right, well, that's the only guy that I'm going to negotiate with because he needs to make up the most ground. And I can do it in a way that I can offer part of the rewards, not give up my position. I can bring him back, and I'm not going to let anybody else who's close, leapfrog me. So that's my trade partner right there. I mean, call it predatory or call it capitalism, whatever you want. But I mean, I looked at that as this is a clear sign that I got to find a way to negotiate with him. I'm going to grab a contract that, I can use to,
So there's another way. I mean, I think we talked about it where we were both at 9, right? And we're like, hey, we can share these two, both get to 10, and then it comes down to the tiebreaker.
Yep.
Who has more
Which
points?
would be fun.
That would be awesome, right? So that there is scenarios in there where you can negotiate if you're right there at the end. I mean, there are edge cases for sure, but I mean, you're not completely shut out of it.
So one of the things that I think is cool, one of the expansions, Overload, adds a bunch of new cards, and there's a couple of new styles of contracts. And this might change how we play the game a little bit, but one of them is a head-to-head contract. So if the current player picks a head-to-head contract, everybody can play who wants to, and you're not working as allies. You don't share the ally abilities that you have in your ship parts, but whoever contributes the most towards the contract wins it. And there might be a secondary reward on it. I think the head-to-head contracts could be really fun because anybody can play. You can't.
You can choose
the
that
current
at the end
player
of the game.
can't. Right,
Yeah.
and the current player can't block out anybody from participating, which is cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that sounds awesome. Another thing I thought of that's not necessarily negative, but something to be aware of is I think this game, and we've talked about it a little bit, is more group dependent than other games.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just something to go into the game understanding before you play. It's like you mentioned, Mark, you have to have the right group. in order to make this a successful experience, right? So just to understand that for some groups, this may not work. But if you get the right group, I think it could definitely shine. So that's just something to be aware of going into this game.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to be disappointed in this game. Like, you've got to be okay with somebody picking something that doesn't make any sense to you, but you're like, and going forward, which I think is kind of a cool feature of the game for me, because it's like, wait, why would you ally with that person? It makes zero sense.
What are you doing?
You didn't hear me. And part of that is understanding that in the negotiations that, hey, sometimes it's easier to just be like, this person's right here in front of me. I'm going to talk to you because I just want to get my points and get out. Like, I want to be done with this part of it, because I don't know how to, everybody's throwing offers at me and trying to do a bunch of different things. And sometimes it's just easier to be like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go. And I think that can be really cool, because for me, the experience is, how do I make myself appear as a valuable partner, in more valuable than other people, whether or not I actually have as much value. Tyler was really good at it in some games where he would be like, hey, I'll go on this mission to help you, and I can do this and I can do that. I can't guarantee that I'll have the card that you want, but here is the counters that I can make up to you. And sometimes that would be worth it, sometimes it wouldn't. And somebody else would be like, no. I can actually fulfill what you're looking for. And it would be fun to make that decision as the person who is controlling that contract.
I will say, if you are playing this game for the negotiating factor and for the fun of negotiating, it loses a little bit of that when you play in 2-player. It has an interesting mercenary deck mechanic where you can buy cards to use towards contracts, and those cycle from round to round, but you miss out on the fun of negotiating. You still negotiate a little bit with the other player, but it's pretty limited. On the flip side of that, the game plays really fast. I mean, we played in less than an hour at 2-player. So just something to keep in mind. If you're not going to get the same experience of negotiating at 2-player.
Yeah, and one other just slight negative for me that I experienced in the second game we played is there's potential to get hosed on the objectives, right?
Yeah.
It's, they may not line up with your strategy. They may not line up with anything that you're doing. It could be one that says you need to solo a certain type of mission, and that mission just doesn't come up in a form that's soloable, right? It's right. Like, oh, I got to roll 4 hazard dice and like 5 reactors and 8 thrusters, It's like, so there's the chance of that happening, which can be a little bit of a bummer, right?
Yeah.
So
I think I think it would be really interesting. I think there's different strategies to explore, buying lots of ship parts, buying lots of crew members. I would like to try, like, hey, I'm going to rest or stay in base the first 4 out of my 5 turns and see what happens, what objectives I get, and then start really playing and see what happens there. It might be enough that I can just cash in on those objectives at the end, and I can build towards them after I've collected them at the beginning of the game, because they are random, and sometimes you get some later in the game and it's like, well, I can't do either one of these, or it'll take me 2 or 3 rounds to accomplish this. So.
Well, that'd be an interesting strategy too, because you could still progress through negotiations on other turns. So that is an interesting thought.
Well, yes and no. So that leads into something that for me was an issue with the negotiation. Again, negotiation in this game is my favorite part about this game. But when we played a 5-player game, the first game we played, I was last in turn order, which meant everybody else went around to choose options. And granted, that was the first game I had played, and I didn't really understand some of the dynamic between how the negotiations work. So there is a learning curve to that. Once you get that, that's not a big problem. But what ended up happening was I did not get included on a single negotiation until about halfway through that game. And that wasn't necessarily people choosing not to include me. There was I can remember a specific instance where Kevin was like, Tyson, we're working together. What do you got? And I was like, well, I got nothing. like my hand does not align up with what you're trying to do in this contract. I drew a hand of cards that cannot contribute. So even if you want to work with me on this one, and I would love to work with you on this one, I'm not your best option. So at the start of the game, that can be rough because I don't have ship parts. I haven't built out a lot of cards. And so if that happens at the start of the game, that means I haven't been included on a bunch of different missions, meaning I don't get the coins, so I can't purchase new cards even when it comes to my turn. If I try and complete a mission on my own, even if I think I can do it, and there was a couple times that I tried to do that, and some of my objectives were like, hey, fulfill this on your own, it wouldn't work for me. And there was just a couple of instances. I don't think all of that was due to the luck of the draw, but there was a couple of instances in that game specifically, and I think it happened to Kevin in a subsequent play where you just couldn't get included on certain parts due to the luck of the draw, and because of that, you're set back a little bit compared to other people have coins, other people have acquired new cards, etc.
So that happened to me during the first play, where the objectives that I had were there was no way that I was, because the cards that were coming up were not contributing towards that anyway. And what was interesting is that I followed Logan, and he came out of the gates like a rocket, right? Yeah. He was scoring points on everything. He had the shields, and so everyone wanted to negotiate with him. He was doing awesome. And I was like, I'm stuck. I need the, green parts for all this stuff. I don't have anything, and I got stuck. What happened though is that as the game evolved, and those did start coming up, that's where I kind of, the arc changed, and I came from, being a lurker and kind of being behind to where I could, sequence this stuff together. And so my point is that, yeah, it was frustrating. I mean, I scratched in my head thinking, I feel like I'm way behind here. I'm not contributing. I feel like I need to be doing more, and I'm not. And I felt kind of hopeless. But as the game wore on, those doors did open themselves to it, and I was able to actually progress. And
I would agree.
And I wound up winning, which,
well, because that's essentially a natural catch-up mechanism in the game, which I think is cool because it's all hidden behind things. Is as the game slows down for somebody who's pulling ahead, other people get opportunities to work together to collectively pull ahead. So, there is a little bit of a counterbalance to it that makes opportunities for that. My only thing was that if there are times where somebody wants to make that negotiation and you just don't have any means to be helpful to somebody, that's the particular feel bad moment for me.
I'll bring this up too, just as I've had a lot of things to say that I really liked about this game, but the one negative they had, which I don't find as a major critique, but you guys know me, I look for a lot of the thematic application, right? The times that we've played this, I never really felt like the feeling of being in space and building the ship was all that strong. Like, even though there were parts, right, that the actions were thrusters, right, and that did that, to me, I was like, these are, whether it's a crew member or a ship part, those are just capabilities that you're acquiring. And the contracts could be anything. It could be any other theme, and I couldn't make that connection as strongly as I would have liked. Just a minor little nitpicky thing that I said, but you've got this cool artwork, you've got this great concept, and it plays well, but I just didn't feel like I was in, in space. It didn't bring me into the moment.
The whole time I was playing, I was picturing Lone Star and Barf.
Which if I would have done, would have been awesome.
We're going to go get this contract.
They got secret hyperjets on this thing. Ludicrous speed, go! Yes.
Ludicrous speed, go!
No, I would agree that the space theme,
it seems a little tacked on.
It's really more of the setting of the game, and you have to do the legwork in your own head to apply the theme, because it really could be anything. It could be nautical. It could be a company, and you're making bids and offering on contracts as an oil company or whatever. It could be anything.
You could change that up either way. And again, I don't say that as a major critique, but it was just something I noticed where we played through, and I was like, the way I looked at the actions was, and the negotiations would sound like this: who's got a blue card that they can play? I need a green one. Instead of I need a thruster so that I can complete
I think we got better about that as we played more. We started calling them by their names.
But even though you call them by their names, it's still I'm going to play a reactor, which is blue. You know, it's not like I'm playing a reactor to add to my shot, whatever that theme may be, right? We call them by the right things, but it still didn't add.
That's why I felt like I'm going to fulfill this contract so I can get 2 points and 3 coins. Well, instead of thinking this contract stipulates that I'm going to do some cool, defeat this alien, explore this planet,
rob him to get money,
whatever. I never made that connection, and maybe that was on me. With more turns, it would become more apparent where I'm focusing more on the game instead of what do the rules allow me to do.
I don't think so.
Maybe, but I did notice that where we'd gone pretty far in the game, and I was like, "Holy cow, this is a space game!" Oh yeah, instead of that being present. The whole time.
I mean, the art itself is beautiful and lends to that. And that's the thing that I kept looking at to bring me back into it. But mechanically, it doesn't really give you that vibe. But that wasn't necessarily a problem for me, but I understand exactly what you're saying.
So I was thinking about this, and we're getting pretty long-winded on this, but that's okay. How many times did people actually throw contracts?
Logan did once.
Did he, or did he? I mean,
he threw it. That's the one where he almost went home.
Okay,
because
I didn't know if if the contract actually started, or
I thought
he did.
Did it fail? Or
he failed? He failed one early in the game because that was an objective, and then he failed one late in the game because I don't know why.
But did the contract itself fail, like independent of that, or was
it couldn't be completed because he said he had stuff and he didn't,
or
he didn't play.
Your question is, it was failed intentionally? Right?
Yeah. But I was thinking about this, and I was like, there were other failed Allied contracts. I wonder if those people failed or they intentionally failed so well that nobody even noticed that they were failing on purpose.
I was trying to do that at times.
Were you?
I was. Because there was one that was, I'm like, hey, I'll get in with you if I can go last. I was trying to get people to do that, and it didn't quite take. But I never successfily, failed one on purpose.
But see, that's the good thing about being the contract. I don't remember what the title. The
commander,
mission leader.
Mission leader, right?
Yeah.
The mission leader allows you to make that decision and say, no, you're going first because I want to see what you do before I make my decisions.
Well, that's a cool.
That.
Like you can negotiate for anything, including turn order.
Yeah.
Right. Like, hey, I'll be in this with you, but I want to go first, or I'll be in this, but I want to go last. And that part of it's cool.
There was one that I argued to get Dan to pick you first before me because I was hoping you would play a card that I would then not have to play, which completed an objective for me. And so I argued pretty strongly to Dan, and he ended up picking you first. And I was like, yes.
Well,
and I still didn't win, but
yeah, I mean, that was beneficial to me because there was one contract where I could have contributed something. I don't remember what it was, but one of you guys picked Dan to draw before me, and he had a card that he could play, but it would cause him to burn one of the cards in his hand. So he wound up discarding a couple of cards while I just sat back and was like, well fine, go ahead.
yeah.
See, that's my concern with the. I love the idea of being able to betray somebody in that. Like, I think it could be cool, but I feel like the risk to do so is too high to actually pull it off, except for maybe once towards the end of the game, like where you have nothing left to lose. But
you can play it off like, oh, so close, I thought I was going to do it, right? I had thrusters and I was going to draw all these cards. It just didn't happen. Dang it.
Well, I wondered if someone actually pulled that off without giving it away that they failed.
No, because you're not going to want to go, screwed you,
Right.
Right.
I see what you're saying, though, but the thing is you have to discard all your cards at the end. So it's not like you can plan to not play a card that can't, like...
I never looked at anybody's hand when they discarded to make sure that...
You could figure it out. That's what I'm saying. If somebody tried to betray you, you could look at their discard or what they're putting down, and you could figure it out, which means that it's harder.
You could kind of do that. You can maybe suspect it, but I think it'd be kind of hard to definitively say because you don't know what's in their draw pile.
And everything else is going on.
Yeah.
You're not really necessarily paying attention to what somebody just discarded, right?
I just think it's a higher risk to do so. And like, which is not a bad thing. I just, when I realized that during the rules teach that you were going through, there's an opportunity in this game to to mess with people. And
what
play
did
like
I
that.
did I say? What did I called this out earlier? Anytime Tyson hears about a way to,
It makes for interesting decisions.
Yes, it does.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Like it makes for choices that aren't otherwise there, which I find very interesting, but I don't want to do it in a way that harms people emotionally in any way. And I think there is the potential in this game.
think
where-
This game can emotionally scar people.
it depends on you said it, group dependent, right? It's group dependent. You can't
I
play
think
this
the
with
only thing that would tick me off about this game is if there was a clear and obvious king making at the end of the game. That would drive me insane. After spending an hour and a half playing this game, something like that happens.
You're flipping the table.
I'm not going to flip the table because we have nice board game tables, but
Don't flip my table.
just why are you here if you're just going to king make and give up? I don't know. That's how I felt.
Well, you'll be pleased to know that all my failures were genuine. If that makes you feel any better.
It does.
And I remember there was a couple of bad beats where I need one card. That's it. I am one action short, and this whole thing is going to fall apart. And I felt like such an idiot for coming.
You were feigning weakness and you trailed behind, and then you came back in the
it
end.
was the
for
meta game.
the
The game within the game.
It was legitimate incompetence. It wasn't me deciding that I was going to ruin everyone else's fun. I was actually going all in.
Well, your legitimate incompetence got you the win. So well played. Well played.
We talked about a lot of negatives and pseudo negatives were brought up, and
Are we still in the negative section?
I don't think that I've really found a negative other than the king making with this game for me personally.
so
But we've gone on at length about it, right?
I think we should probably do final.
So we can wrap this up and put
wrap
it
this
into
up.
our final thoughts, right? I think that to start us off with our final thoughts, I'd love to hear your final thoughts, Tyler, on this.
So I have to say that I have loved playing this game every single play. There have been some disappointing moments. There's been some moments where I went for it and failed each time. But I love that this game creates those moments. I love the negotiating aspect. I love trying to figure out how am I going to get to 10 points? What strategy am I going to try this game? I think this game has a ton to offer. For me, I keep going back to it. The best part of this game is the fun in negotiating. I think this game is it's actually really simple. It's a quick teach. It's a quick setup. Get going. Obviously, your first play is going to be a little exploratory, but once you figure it out, I would love to keep going back to this game. And especially, with new expansion content, I've read through the rules a little bit of the expansions. They all add new cards. They all add new things. There is a lot more that's going to change with this game, and I'm excited for it. So, I was leaning towards giving it a 4. This is so outside of the box for me as a interaction negotiating game or outside of the box for our group. But I really like it. And I think it's a 5 for me. So I'm excited to go back to it. It's not a game that I want to play back to back to back. But if we bust this out once a month or once every other month with the same group who knows what to expect and knows what is going to happen and we're used to negotiating with each other, I want to play this every month or every other month. I want to keep getting this out and keep playing it. And I'm excited to go back to it. I think the expansions are going to take it to the next level, and I'm excited for it. They're all fairly simple and easy to implement and add to the game, I think. And in fact, one of them, it rewards you for allying with other players. You have a token on your board for every other player in the game, and it advances as you ally with other players, and then you can cash it in for rewards. Or if you hang on to it and build it up even further, you can cash it out for prestige. And I don't know, there's so much more that's going to get added. I'm excited for it. This is a 5 for me. 5 out of 5. I am excited to go back to this game.
Yeah. So when I think about the games that I've rated 5 out of 5, Aeon's End, Ankh, Anachrony, they blew me away from the get-go, right? And I didn't quite get that feeling with this one. It's a fantastic game. I love the negotiation. I love the production's amazing. I like how you're building up your ship. You're building up your crew. I'm with you. The negotiation is by far the best part of the game, though. And going into contracts and not knowing if you're going to be able to complete them and the press your luck is just exciting and fun. I love that aspect of it. It doesn't quite break into that 5 range for me, but I think it's a solid 4. It's a game that I'm always going to be willing to play. And I think, now that we've figured out the negotiation, and if you play with the same group over and over again, I think it gets better and better every time you play. I'm super excited about the expansions. That's going to be cool. I'm excited to see what they add to the game. So like I said, it's a solid 4 for me. I would happily play it anytime.
I think my experience playing the game is a little bit different because the way the couple of plays we've had, I've won those times, and which it doesn't happen all that often. But what's interesting about that is that there were times during both of those games where I felt stuck and completely hopeless. The light bulb went on. I was able to figure out how to rally and, make my move, and it worked out well. And it wasn't just because it ended up well that I liked it so much, although that is always nice. But the fact that I saw potential for recovery, where if you blow a move, you're not out for the rest of the game. Sometimes there's games where you play, you get lapped, and you're just toast. There's nothing you can do to recover. That wasn't the case here. And so, I'm with Tyler. This is a game that overall, if you ask me, did I enjoy it? I love playing it. If you offered this versus some of the other games, I would probably play Moonrakers again because I enjoyed the variety. I would rate this as a 5 because, the only little critiques I have were based on, some of the theme that gets a little bit loose. And when I looked at my player card, I looked at it, and my first reaction was, this player card looks awesome. I can't wait to see what I can do with that. The only thing I could do is put my parts on it. That was a little disappointing, but that's such a nitpicky little thing, right? The gameplay was really, really enjoyable. I felt like it brought in the best of all the personalities we have in our group, which, certainly contributes. But at the end of the day, this was just super fun to play. And I can see it being super fun to continue to play. And when you change up the group, when you change up some of the other dynamics, especially with the expansions that are forthcoming, I don't see that changing. And so I'm with Tyler. I have to give it a 5.
So I guess that leaves me. I love everything that everybody has said about this. Because the same things that everybody loves about this game is what I love about this game. I love the negotiation. I think it's by far the best part of this game. There is so much in it, so many opportunities to negotiate with different things. We didn't even talk about how you can negotiate the hazard dice, and I think that's such a cool element of this game. You can negotiate and get people more rewards if you give them more risk, and I think that's pretty cool in this game as well. There is so many interesting bits of this game that it offers a lot of opportunity to explore. It offers a lot of opportunity to learn and grow from it. For me, I think this game has the potential to grow and develop and be better after each subsequent play. You, Tyler, and Kevin both mentioned how, and Mark, you even mentioned how this game, if you're playing it with the same group over and over and over again, it just gets better. You're going to get faster at it. You're going to understand how to negotiate. You're going to understand how the group think works and operates, and you're going to be able to utilize that, which I think is super interesting and cool for this game. Conversely, though, I think that is, for me, a negative because I would not really want to teach this all that often to new players. Having experienced players who understand how it operates, I worry that teaching this game to somebody who doesn't really know it, or multiple somebodies who don't, and then a couple of people who do, I worry that has some potentially negative situations that come. For me, that slowdown at the end of the game is a big deal because I love the negotiation so much. I feel that the negotiation drops off towards the end. I think this is a good game. I think that if what we're saying sounds intriguing, you need to try this game. This game has a lot to offer. For me, it's a 3. This game is a good game. My ranking scale is 1 is a terrible game, 2 is a mediocre, 3 is a good game, 4 is a great game, and 5 is an amazing game. This game is not an amazing game to me. Not to say that it's a bad game. I like a lot going on, but if I'm going to play a negotiation game, and you guys know what game I'm about to mention, I'm gonna play Sidereal Confluence
And bifurcation.
and bifurcation expansion, right? Because that offers that negotiation period throughout the entire game, and I don't have that slowdown at the same. I think that you wouldn't go wrong with playing this game, though. If this sounds fun, you've really got to try this game. Obviously, everybody here likes this game, and there's a lot to offer. And if you like what we have said, definitely check out Moonrakers, especially since it's going back on Kickstarter pretty soon.
So we got a couple 5s, a 4, and a 3, and we all had a blast playing it.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about the Moonrakers expansions. The Kickstarter goes live, what should be tomorrow when this releases. The expansions are Binding Ties, Nomad, and Overload, and I can't wait to check them out. We'll go ahead and post a link in the show notes once the Kickstarter goes live.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more Longest Turn in your life, please check us out on Instagram. Also, be sure to check us out on Board Game Geek, where you can join our guild, Guild 3947, and check out our blog, where we post all our show notes and occasionally post more detailed reviews. If that's not enough for you, we have a Discord server. If you want to play a game with us on Board Game Arena, join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn. Until next time, thanks for listening. See you later.
Toadseeds.
Goodbye.
Nos vemos.
Moonrakers is a game of that. It's boxing in the wooden is. Brian, are you an idiot? Apparently. Imbecile.
Girth.
Let's
talk about it. Let's talk
content.
Great idea.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin, for that. That was garbage. I don't want to do that.
Not only is the game itself beautiful, the instruction manual, or the rule book.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, shut.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead. No, sure.
I don't know what I was going to say now.
So I was covering my mouth. Microphones don't work this way.
Bored in the darkness. Bored by it.
Like, is that it? Is that really all we're saying? That's it? We're done?
So that wraps up Moonrakers. Check it out.